Hi, this is Michelle Massey with Operation Parent, and I'm here to welcome you to our webinar this afternoon. And I'd like to talk you through a few of our features. Like all of our webinars, we are recording this one today, and the recording will be sent out by email in the next 5 hours. For those of you joining us live, you will receive a certificate of attendance within the next 24 hours. Just give us a little bit of time to get those together, and they're going to be sent to you in a separate email from the recording. So yes, you will also receive the recording. Immediately following the close of the webinar, you will get a brief survey. This will pop up directly after the webinar, and it's only going to take you about 2 minutes to complete. Your continued support, encouragement, and constructive feedback is appreciated and utilized to guide and develop the webinar program. We do have a handout for you today. It's the first aid kit that Dr. Grimes has developed in her years of working on this project. And let me tell you just a little bit about Operation Parent. We are a nonprofit, and it's our mission to love and support parents by providing real-world information, connection, and most importantly, hope. The title of our presentation today is Launch, Don't Crash, Tips for Teens Before They Fly the Nest. And boy, don't we all need those. Dr. Jill Grimes is here with us, and we can't wait for you to spend some time with her. Our next webinars are listed here, and you can do the quick pop-up to register if you're interested. We're doing Parenting an Addictive World with Kraya Laysdon on May 6th. And then we are going to be with the Stanford Reach Lab on June the 3rd with Dr. Bonnie. And we're going to be talking about the tobacco toolkit, the cannabis toolkit, and alternatives to suspension if someone is caught vaping in school. And now it's my distinct pleasure to tell you a little bit about Dr. Grimes. She's a nationally recognized family physician, award-winning author, and go-to expert for navigating the many teen health challenges of today. She's known across social media as the College Doc, and I encourage you to follow her there. She has dedicated 30 years in private practice as well as university health. She's a regular contributor to CNN Wellness and the esteemed author of the Ultimate College Student Health Handbook. Her book is a giant first aid kit in a book. You're going to want to read this, parents, first, and then you're going to want to send your young adults off to college. You can't send them off until they have this book. I'm purchasing it for my daughters, my nieces, and for others who are graduating this year. It's a really must-have. I want you to stay until the very end to be entered to win a signed copy of the Ultimate College Student Health Handbook and hear what your young adult really needs in their first aid kit as they head off to college. This can be one of the best graduation gifts out there. Welcome, Dr. Grimes.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's our pleasure, for sure.
All right, so I'm going to mention a couple other things just so that you get to know me a little bit. My husband and I have 2 daughters who are college graduates, and one who also went to graduate school, and one who went through the Disney college program after college. So you might see that I love Disney, and that is part of the reason why. We also have a precious godson who is just finishing his freshman year of college. So we're right in the thick of things with finals and all the anxiety that go with that end of the first year. So I am a parent, I'm a doctor, and I am that mom and Girl Scout leader that the kids always came to when they had a medical concern. So I hope that I can share a lot of this information with you. And I realize that we've got parents with kids across all ages and try and make it pertinent to different ages. So here we go. I just need to go to my next slide here. All right. So, just a quick word about this book. And it's a mom brag. So, our younger daughter got a degree in animation. She went to Loyola Marymount University out in LA. And I had intended to have this book written before the older one went to school. The older one was a senior in college when this happened. But the younger one, since she got a degree in animation, she was actually working for her school's publishing house, and she was already an illustrator, and then she ended up getting to be an illustrator for my book. So mom brag, her name is right on there too, Nicole Grimes, and that makes it extra special to me. So I'm excited to along with Operation Parent, give away 3 copies. And for the winners, if you tell me who you want me to make it out to, I'll put a special note to them. All right. And again, just there'll be a pop-up that tells you when it's time to enter. All right. So Operation Parent asked me to cover a lot of things today. So I hope that you've got snacks, got your cup of coffee or whatever that you can settle in. So we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to go over 3 different major takeaways. The first is about learning how to transfer those healthcare reins from you to your kid. The second one is adopting strategies that will really help improve sleep quality and therefore improve brain health. And the last part is just kind of a getting parents up to speed about today's party culture because it's a lot different than it used to be. So, let's just jump right in, starting with the section on how do we start letting our kids take control or learn how to take parts of control over their healthcare. When our kids are little, we are by necessity helicopter parents in healthcare, right? Of course we are. We have to do everything. We're not going to entrust a baby or a toddler to head to the doctor and do anything. So we start off doing absolutely everything. The problem is a lot of us just keep doing that because we do it for so many years. And then all of a sudden, our kid graduates from high school and goes out into the big wide world, and they don't know how to do any of it. So we need to at least progress through being a snowplow parent where we maybe make the appointment. So snowplow parent just paves the way, right? You might not write that email, but you maybe write a text that your kid then copies and pastes into an email that they send. That's snowplow parenting. And with healthcare, that means that you might still be making the appointment and filling out the forms. But by the time that they are in high school, if they are old enough to drive or to take public transportation by themselves, they're old enough to start participating more in those routine health visits. And so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to break it down into things they can do about their body with medications, nutrition, and exercise. And then overlapping with that, we're going to include stuff with the brain, sleep, social media, and loneliness. So let's start with medications. It is really important that our kids learn how to be responsible for taking their medications before they head out the door to live on their own, whether that's in college or elsewhere. So what I suggest is that starting in 7th or 8th grade, depending on your kid's maturity, but for sure by high school, that you get one of those weekly pill boxes and have them if they have any prescription medicines. And honestly, even if they just take vitamins or if it's allergy season and maybe they take an over-the-counter antihistamine on a regular basis, if they take any pills on a regular basis, you want to put that in that little weekly dispenser box and you supervise them putting it in on Sunday night, and then do your best to just have it sitting out somewhere near where they eat breakfast, and it should be their responsibility. And this is particularly important with kids that are on ADHD medications because yes, they're on it for attention deficit. And yes, many of us have been in the situation of chasing out the door. Like, did you take this? Did you take this yet? And it's okay to have those reminders, but also, high school isn't a bad time to let them forget once and let them see how that affects their performance. Because trust me, it happens a lot in college that kids forget these medicines because they're not used to being in charge of it themselves. So this is the first thing that you can do to teach them to be responsible. And also with refills, the good thing about doing that week in advance is that when you come to the end of the pills, you're not running out of it right then. You see that you're running out of pills at the end of the week or maybe halfway through the week. Hopefully, if that's the case, you noticed the week before. But we need to teach them you don't ask for a refill when you're out of medicines. You ask for a refill when you've got a week left, right? Especially we've found with the supply chain hassles and everything, you know as well as I do that especially these ADHD medications, you might be waiting for 2 weeks to get them in. So you ask for a refill a week in advance, teach them how to do that. Your older teens will be relieved that they don't even have to talk to anybody on their phone. So there's no phonophobia, right? They can just, look at the number on the bottle, punch in the numbers, ask for a refill. Now with ADHD meds, sometimes they do also have to reach out and call the doctor, but they need to learn that. And this is the time to teach them to do it. So that is how and when to do refills. And this is a big step in teaching our kids some healthcare independence. A few things about ADHD. We're like already doing an aside, but Operation Parent said they really wanted me to talk about a few myths with ADHD. So here we go, just in a little nutshell as an aside. Number one, yes, it's real. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is real, whether or not you have the hyperactivity in there. Not everybody has that part. Two, the fact that you can focus on something, your kid, is so focused on often something like video games or artwork or something in the creative nature. And a lot of parents will say, well, if they can focus on that, it's just a choice that they're not focusing on their schoolwork. No, an ADHD brain works differently. And honestly, I wish it had a different name because they all have that hyper focus ability. So it makes regular focus less in comparison. So there is that. Also, the medications help with more than just academics. A lot of times, and I was very guilty of this for first half of my career, probably. I would think that if a kid is doing well in school, meaning that their grades were fine, that I didn't really think it was necessary to add on the medications. But the reality is that these medications actually help kids with social interactions as well and gives them a bit of a confidence boost and can be a real game changer. And I've seen that in my own family. Lastly, when you have older teens and they are on ADHD medications, I know the drinking age for alcohol is 21, but we also know there are a lot of kids under the age of 21 who are drinking. And it's really important for any kids that are on these medications to understand that when you're on a stimulant ADHD medication, so I'm talking like Adderall, Vyvanse, et cetera, when they're on a stimulant one, if it is still in their system, it is busy stimulating their brain. That's what it's there for, right? But if they take a drink, they're not going to feel it. They might take 2, 3, 4 even and feel nothing. Their blood alcohol level is going up. They are having changes in their body, but not in their alertness. So they don't feel it till it's too late. And they go from feeling nothing to sort of sloppy drunk. And it's a very scary situation. So that's an important thing to teach them. The other thing is that these pills, they're sold as study pills, even though it turns out they do not actually help people improve grades, but students are buying them for $5 to $10 a pill. So it's really key that our teens understand that you don't lend these to people. It's actually a felony if they sell it to someone. And when they go off to college, you need to have a locked up box where they keep this, not just out in their weekly dispensing box. All right. So let's get back to the main thing. So we're back to teaching our kids how to take over their healthcare. The next thing I want to talk about is nutrition, and setting connections early on is so important. So one great habit that you can do is to have a steady stash of healthy foods. In our house, it's always bananas, apples, and peanut butter. We actually use those little peanut butter cups for convenience. So it's just a grab and go. And we keep that out. We keep protein bars and nuts, whatever works in your family, but start that association of healthy snacks, have it visible, not in a pantry, not just in the fridge. So pick something that can be sitting out because you want it to be very easily accessible, and they will watch what you do. If you are sitting around with your laptop doing work, make sure that you've got your own little healthy study stash there. So that's one thing. For younger kids, it's really key. I mean, as I mean, grade school even. It is great if you can get them involved in being responsible for one meal a week. Now, a third grader can't go to the grocery store on their own, but they can say, hey, Mom, I'd really like to learn how to make homemade pizza, or I just want to make spaghetti. Might be scrambled eggs, might not be something elaborate, but get them to buy into all of the stuff of preparing one meal a week. It's a great way to get them to try new foods, and they really get invested in it. Plus, it's kind of fun for them if they are in charge of picking it out. They grocery shop with you, which, by the way, is teaching them how much these ingredients cost, right? And then they help prepare it. You work together to prepare it. And then my suggestion is, if they are usually in charge of dishes, don't let them do the dishes that night. You say, this was your meal, you fixed it, I'm going to clean up. And that is a great way to get kids interested in their nutrition. All right, exercise. We tend to think about exercise, about being very focused about our bodies, right? We're thinking about building muscle or losing weight. I want you to change how you think about exercise. I want the major thing you think about exercise is that it is for your brain. We've known for decades that regular exercise, like 30 minutes a day, getting your heart rate up, hiking, biking, whatever, swimming, but something where you get your heart rate up and have this intense aerobic, not that have to be super intense, but just, an elevated aerobic activity for 30 minutes, 7 days a week is the equivalent of taking a low dose of an antidepressant. We've known that for a long time. And there's been different studies trying to quantify that in different ways. But I want to mention this study, which was a meta-analysis. So it looked at over 200 studies. It was 218 randomized controlled trials, had over 14,000 total participants in those trials. And the bottom line is this. We found that, once again, exercise, they particularly highlighted walking, jogging, yoga, and strength training. So yoga doesn't necessarily get your heart rate up high, but it is still active. And those things were all equivalent in mood elevation to people who were depressed with therapy or with medications. Now, the best was actually medications plus exercise. And I don't at all mean to be downgrading therapy. Therapy is fabulous. But the point is, we need to realize that this is part of our health and a super important part of our mental health. So talk about that when you talk about exercise, like, I'm having a bad day, instead of saying, it's wine o'clock, maybe like, I got to go take a walk around the block, or I'm going to jump on that exercise bike, or do whatever, or dance around the kitchen. Doesn't matter what it is, but keep moving and talk about it with your kids in that manner. Without sleep, nobody's mental health is good, right? We all know that when we are sleep deprived, we're hyper emotional, everything goes badly, we can't think clearly. And high school and college are both kind of designed to mess up your sleep, right? There's a lot of things. They have all these extracurriculars when they're in high school, even before that. And then they have to do their homework after the extracurriculars. Then they're staying up late. Then they feel entitled to a break, which they are entitled to one, but then they end up on their phones and they're scrolling late at night. And then they get sucked into that. And next thing you know, it's the middle of the night. They're not even asleep yet. And then you wake up tired and the cycle starts again. So it's really important to talk about sleep and how restorative it is and how much that can help our mental health as well as academics. In college, one thing I want to point out on this slide is that the biggest mistake we see college students make with their sleep cycles is that they get up at different times every day. If they only have early classes Tuesday, Thursday, they sleep in till noon Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that will mess you up. You just got to get up at the same time, take a nap if you get up at different times. I mean, if you don't need to always be up then, but get up at the same time every day is really helpful. If you get nothing out of this talk today, look at this slide. Everything on here is really going to improve the quality of your sleep. So the ideal sleep situation is in a cool room, 68 to 70 degrees, and dark and quiet and comfortable. And so we can't control a lot of those things. And students in college really can't control them, right? It's loud, it's noisy. You've got your roommate coming in and out of the same bedroom. It's rough. So you got to learn to control what you can control. So think of all of these things and what you can do. So to make it dark, in your home now, you might be able to do blackout blinds, and also removing your electronics, or sometimes I just put like blackout tape over the little lights that some of the electronic things in our bedroom that we can't seem to get out of our bedroom. Any little light does decrease your quality of sleep. So if you can't black out the room, black out your eyes. Get a sleep mask. And by the way, get a couple of them because they should be washed once or twice a week. You can just throw them in with your laundry. They're very easy to take care of and they're inexpensive, but it's great if you get in the habit of sleeping with a sleep mask. The next thing is to make it cool. Have a fan in dorm rooms. A lot of kids have the little small fans that they just clip onto the end of their bed. That works great. Ceiling fans, obviously. It also provides you some white noise in the background. You want to control what you're hearing. And if you can wind down at night with either a guided meditation, or college students really like sleep stories, which are, they're adult, not meaning pornographic, but adult meaning not like nursery rhyme stories. They're older stories. And if it's just sort of, they ramble on a bit and they have little side notes, and they're not like just said in a monotone, but they just go on and you fall asleep to that because you're listening to that and you're focusing on that instead of thinking of the 600 problems that were going in circles in your brain before. So you want to listen to something. You don't want to fall asleep with anything in your ears. So no AirPods. You can get very decent quality now for inexpensive. It looks like a headband that goes around your head and it goes on the outside of your ears, but you can just sleep in it. It's comfortable. So that's how you control to make it quiet. You have your relaxation. If you have the luxury at home or in your dorm room of a scent, you have to be careful. You want to have floral scents that annoy your roommate, but you can at least get the deodorizers that are gels that take the bad smells out, particularly of dirty clothes. Have that. It's cool. And weighted blankets. Many people who have anxiety do really well with a weighted blanket. How much weight? Well, it has to do with your weight relative to it, but in general, a smaller person can have a 7 to 10 to maybe 12-pound weighted blanket, and a bigger person would have a 15-pound, up to 20. But really what happens is when you get these ones that are much heavier, students won't use them. It's just too much of a hassle to pick them up and pull them. So I suggest if you are getting a weighted blanket for the first time, try just like a 7 or 8-pound one. And it's sort of like someone hugging you as you go to sleep. And a lot of people find that really improves their sleep. All right. As for social media, we know that these different apps are designed to just keep you hooked in. And it is so easy to have more time on those screens than you intend, especially if you're doing it at night, which, if at all possible, I try and recommend not using your phone right before bed. But let me tell you, there is an easy way that you can see how much you're using, and you can set time limits for yourself. I actually didn't discover this till the past year, but it's really simple. You go in your phone, you go to the settings, scroll down to screen time, click app limits, and you can literally set there what you want to do. Do you want it to be an hour? You want it to be an hour and a half? You want it to be 30 minutes? Same with your games, so that it'll pop up a little warning, and yes, you can hit snooze and keep going, but at least you get warnings. And I think everybody could benefit from taking a look at that, because I think we're all getting too much screen time. The other thing about social media, I just want to say, for students who are heading off to college, looking at their phones right before they go to sleep, when they're looking at their social media and they're seeing all their friends all across the country having so much more fun than they are, or so they think, I remind them, reverse the lens. Think about what pictures you're posting. You're not posting things. Most people aren't saying, oh, I'm sad and I haven't made friends yet. Everyone's posting their best self. So just remind them that reverse the lens. Not everybody else is having a better time than you. All right. We know that mental health is a huge issue for our kids of all ages. And look at this statistic. It is now 1 in 5 adolescents, so ages 12 to 17, 1 in 5 are currently diagnosed with a mental or behavioral health condition. And by the way, yeah, I see that those numbers do not add up to the 20%, but that's because they're overlapping. So 1 in 5 have a condition, some have more than one. But it's really important and we just have to address it. Some warning signs that you can look out for in your kid. Some of these are a lot more obvious when they're under your roof. And I just want to put it out there that when they head off to college, a phone call and a text isn't enough. You really need to FaceTime now and again because you can't see over a text or the phone that it looks like your kid hasn't, washed their hair in a week or showered, or you can't see their hygiene and maybe they're breaking out a ton. Not that all breakouts are related to hygiene, but when you have poor hygiene, it does encourage breakouts. But all these things are important to look at. So their hygiene, are they sleeping all the time or are they not sleeping at all? Maybe they're just staying up. Is their room completely covered in trash? All those things. Obviously, if they're saying they wish they weren't around or that they're wanting to hurt themselves, these are really hard to hear. Do not ignore them when you hear them. When you hear that, it is 100% time to talk to a healthcare professional. And we have a really helpful thing in the United States that I hope stays. You never know with our different funding cuts, but right now we have a special phone line dedicated for mental health crisis. So instead of dialing 911, it's 988. And parents, this is really important. It's not just for your teen. They can call or text, by the way. They can call or you can call if you're concerned about your kid. And this is not set up for long-term counseling. It's crisis intervention, but they do a really good job of letting you know what services are available in your area. So be sure that both you and your kids know this number, 988. And a word about homesickness and pets. The number one thing that kids miss when they move out of their home is their pets. Yes, they miss their parents, but the reality is they can talk with us. They can text with us, they can talk, they can FaceTime. And while some pets can FaceTime, and in our family, our daughter's cat actually does seem to respond when we talk to it on FaceTime, but most animals do not, and definitely most dogs do not. And so kids really miss that. So before they head off to school or wherever they're headed, if they're going away, do take some pictures of the dog with them to either, or your any pets that you have, to so that they can have one of those in their dorm room. And know that homesickness is really common. Over half, 50 to 70% of college freshmen will experience homesickness to some degree. But surprisingly, everyone always assumes that it's the people who are from across the world who are foreign exchange students or whatever, that they're going to have the most homesickness. What I found in college health is the opposite. It's the kids who live literally, like I live in a college town. A lot of kids who live here in Austin but go to UT Austin still get homesick. And this is true no matter where kids are across the country. Regardless of where it is, what happens is they're so close to home that their families still kind of have them living at home, essentially, not intentionally, but if it's Sunday dinners or it's somebody's birthday or their sibling has a football game or a dance recital or whatever, they still are very much in the throes of their home life. And I'm not saying that that's inherently bad, but what I am saying is they're missing out on time when there's just downtime and kids are bored, especially on weekends. when they're doing their laundry and everyone's hanging out doing their laundry in the laundry room, that is when a lot of friendships are made, and going to events on campus. And if you're always going home, you're not going to make those connections. So it makes sense. So please be aware of that. It's hard, especially if it's your oldest going off, and especially if they have a bunch of younger siblings and you're a tight family and you've always done that. But do your best to, let them pick one event or maybe two events a month that's really important to them to come back for, rather than being just part of the family nonstop like they always have. That will help them separate and create independence. So, loneliness. You can't fight loneliness alone. I'd like everyone to sort of just say that to themselves, maybe out loud. I think it's a really profound statement. And this actually, our younger daughter was in college part of the COVID years. So half of her junior year and all of her senior year, she was not on campus. She was literally alone. And a lot of animation classes can thankfully be done online, but she was lonely. And this was the last slide in her senior project, not shockingly, because she addressed the issue of loneliness. And what we did learn from the separation, the physical separation of the pandemic, is that while online groups are helpful and online connections are definitely helpful, they are not a replacement for in-person connections. So the most important thing when kids go off and they move out, whether they're going to college or whatever else they're doing, is I encourage them to find 3 things to join. So this is the rule of 3. And I think they should be 3 separate kinds of things. So maybe one service community, like they're volunteering to do something for others, maybe one purely frivolous thing if they like movies, joining a movie club, or if they're a foodie, going to different restaurants, or maybe they're learning how to make different foods. And if they want a religious or a political group, but the point is get 3 different kinds of groups to join. And this is really fun when they're looking at colleges to start looking at all the different groups, because most schools now have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clubs. You'll be amazed what all there is. Our younger daughter did actually join the juggling club, which is where this picture came from. She did not know how to juggle. It was just a fun thing to do, and had a blast and made some really good friends in it. But by picking 3 different kinds of groups, you're going to make friends that have different kinds of interests. And a lot of times people latch on to just one thing, and then they maybe find later on that they don't really click as much as they thought with those people. And then they feel lost because they only had that one group. So 3 different organizations, put 3 events on your calendar. Every city and every college has plenty going on that you can pick 3, again, diverse events to go to, maybe a music thing. There's so many different things. And connect with 3 new people, especially directed at kids starting high school, kids starting college. When you go into a new class, have a conversation, even if it's just a quick hello and who are you, where are you from kind of thing, which is especially easy in college because everyone's like, what's your major? Where are you from? Where do you live on campus or off campus? So reaching out to that 333, that is really going to decrease your loneliness and make you feel connected. So now we're moving on to a bit of the party scene. And I want to say that no one thinks it's going to be their kid who ends up struggling with pills or alcohol or some sort of substance addiction. And I can tell you that I get calls about once a week on average from physicians that I know peripherally or through Facebook groups or whatever. And they always start out the same. The first sentence is always, I can't believe that I'm the one making this call to you or reaching out to you, especially if they're longtime friends. The second sentence is, especially about my insert description of a perfect kid, my Eagle Scout son, my daughter that got into 3 Ivy Leagues, my kid that's an Olympic swimmer, all the things, right? Because when they get those external awards and milestones, it just feels like, well, if they have that, they're good, right? They shouldn't have a problem. And yes, they know better. None of our kids that we raise are going to just go from not doing anything, not drinking alcohol, not smoking. They're not going to just suddenly walk out and see a half-used syringe on the ground and decide to do IV drugs. That's not how it works. This is what happens. They are struggling with something. They are frustrated about a class, maybe they're worried about a test, and they can't sleep. And a friend says, "Oh my gosh, just try this, it'll help you sleep." Or they are freaking out because they've got a paper due and it's due the next day, and they're like, "Oh my god, there's not enough caffeine in the world to keep me awake for this." And another friend or roommate says, "Just take my ADHD medicine. It'll work for you." And that's how it starts. It's from somebody who is a friend or somebody that appears to be a trusted resource. It's a peer. It's not some shady creature who shows up and is like, "Here, do drugs." And I think we really need to talk about this more, because that's how people start using something. And unfortunately, if they are handed something like a Xanax, which should be a sedative, a prescription sedative, and they're handed that by a peer, odds are good that that is not coming from a pharmacy. And if that is a street drug, Xanax, that looks like Xanax anyway, there's a really good chance that there could be fentanyl in there. And we know that fentanyl is taking far too many lives. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to address that that is how good kids end up making bad choices and or risky choices and can get into trouble. So the good news is Operation Parent has so many fabulous speakers that I'm honored to be part of their panel. And the last two before me were very excellent speakers, particularly about marijuana, cannabis products, with Laura Stack and with Dr. Weiner talking about vaping. And I strongly encourage you to go to their webinars and watch them. I watch them both. You can learn, everybody can learn something from them. And so I'm not going to repeat what they said, other than just a reminder that today's weed is not yesterday's pot. It is much more concentrated and far more risky. What I will add on, because neither of them addressed edibles, is this. Kids who would never smoke something, inhale something, might not think as hard about not accepting a gummy bear, which is the most common THC edible. Okay. So, I mean, think about it. Is there anything less scary than a gummy bear? They're tiny, they're cute, they come in fun colors. We've grown up eating them and they just don't look intimidating. But here's the thing. A single gummy bear has 10 milligrams of THC in it on average, assuming that you're getting it from a legal store, if it is legal in your state. It's They typically have 10 milligrams. And the recommended dose for somebody, not recommended by physicians, I don't recommend any. Let me be clear on that. That's not something I recommend. But if someone were going to use it, the starting dose that is appropriate for recreational use is 2.5 milligrams. So doing the math, that's 1/4 of a gummy bear. So that's like the gummy bear's head, not even the whole gummy bear, right? Who eats 1/4 of a gummy bear? No one. And then here's what happens. They pop that in their mouth, they eat it, 10 minutes goes by, and they feel nothing. And when you drink alcohol, when you inhale a vape, when you do anything else, you feel it quickly, right? So by 10 minutes, certainly by 15, when they don't feel anything, well, I guess I need more, right? So, excuse me, take some water. So that's what they do. They have another one and they don't bite the head off the second one either. So now they've taken 20 milligrams and it might take 45 minutes. It can take up to 90, an hour and a half, 90 minutes for the first edible to kick in. And now you've got two in there. And sometimes people really will have even more than that. And yes, you can overdose on THC edibles. It is not that it will stop you from breathing, but you can be miserably sick. You can have psychosis, lose touch with reality, and be really ill and need to be rushed to an emergency room. So please be careful with that. The other thing is that our kids' generation, they are excellent about not driving drunk and about not driving with anyone else who's been drinking. But unfortunately, they don't think about it as much with edibles, and edibles stay in your system. It takes that hour to hour and a half to kick in, and it stays in your system for 8 to even 12 hours. So we need to also be talking about do not drive with anybody who's been doing edibles, because same thing as being drunk, their reflexes are impaired, their judgment is impaired, and they're much more likely to get into wrecks. All right, so back to alcohol. So back in the day, beer was the thing, right? That was what people would sneak beers, have a sip of beer. I live in Texas. A lot of people give their kids sips of beer at festivals and stuff growing up. That's very accepted social norm. And now it's really, most kids are not initially starting alcohol with beer. They're actually starting with doing shots of vodka or tequila, most often vodka, I will say. And shots are dangerous. Why? Because you get so much so quickly. And it is very easy to get alcohol toxicity to where you're vomiting, sick, and at risk of death from shots, because you just do them so fast. They don't wait to feel anything. And you add in the possibility if they have ADHD medicines on board, again, they're not going to feel it. So it becomes very risky. And the other thing is a it's certainly not, let me just say, in college, about a third of students choose not to drink at all. So I think that's great. I love that there's a lot of sober curious culture where kids are saying, I don't want to drink. Why would I do that to my brain? And there's so many fun non-alcoholic drinks now. It is actually much easier to feel social and feel like you're part of the party, with less of the pressure to drink. So all of that is good. Unfortunately, there is also a culture of blackout drinking. And that means on purpose drinking to the point of having a blackout. Blacking out is not passing out. So passing out is unconscious. Blacking out means that you drank so much, or it's not even the quantity, it's the speed of which your blood alcohol level was rising. If you drink too much too fast, you will actually switch off the spot in your brain, the hippocampus, that takes short-term memories and makes them into long-term memories. So the next day, no matter how many people tell you what you were doing, even if they show you videos, which I guarantee you nowadays there will be videos of whatever thing you were doing that you shouldn't have been doing. But even if you see that, you might remember seeing the video, but you're not going to remember the event because you did not make long-term memories. And this is really important because we need to be warning our kids against doing this. It is damaging their brain. It's not good. Think of it like a concussion. We know now that, football players and other sports who have repeated head trauma are at risk for, cognitive problems and dementia. And, we don't know what is going to be the long term. And I can't quantify exactly the damage anyone is doing, but I tell them, think of it like a concussion. You don't want to be, damaging your brain on a regular basis. That's a bad idea. And there are many, many repercussions. People, sometimes kids will say, oh, if I don't remember, it doesn't matter what happened. And I'm like, well, it does matter. What if you got pregnant or got someone else pregnant or caught an STD or you were in an accident? There's all these things. And there is a legal complication that is very serious about consent. No one can give consent when they're drunk, but the reality is people are often intimate physically when they have been drinking. We all know that. And here's the thing. Again, we're doing a great job of teaching. It's not just no means no and yes means yes. That consent is enthusiastic, ongoing, verbalized consent. So someone doesn't just say yes once and then kind of keep going through with it. They're like, yes, I want to do this, very excited about it, right? They might be giving you that enthusiastic, ongoing consent, but they drank a bunch of shots before that, their brain switched off long-term memories. The next day, they have no memory of consent, but they might have obvious reasons to realize that they were intimate, and this leads to a lot of problems. This is not gender specific at all, and it's something that we need to have conversations about. All right, and back to fentanyl. Very sadly, other than, let me start with the good news first. The good news is that in 2024, we had about a 24% decrease in deaths from fentanyl from the year before. And the bad news, though, is that we went from, I've got these numbers written down so I don't mess it up here, 114,000 deaths from fentanyl down to only 87,000 deaths. That's still 87,000 too many. And to break it down even further for our teens in 2022, which is where we have the most recent data on that's completed, 22 students, 14 to 18 years old, 22 14 to 18-year-olds died per week of fentanyl overdose. And here's the key. When we say fentanyl overdose, most of the time it doesn't mean somebody who took a bunch of fentanyl. And people aren't buying pills of fentanyl. Let me be clear. They think they're buying oxycodone or some other pain pill or Adderall or Xanax. They think they're buying one of those prescription pills, but there is fentanyl in it because drug dealers can put it in there. It gives people a buzz. They think they're getting what other drug they thought they were. But unfortunately, if you are not tolerant to fentanyl, it can kill you. The same dose that kills one person will not kill the next if they have different tolerance. But that's what we're worried about. And that's what's happening with these teens. You hear these horror stories on TV where you see 3 teens were in a bathroom in California and they took a pill. They didn't think that they were killing themselves. There was no intent of that. They just thought they were kind of escaping, and I don't know if they were doing it for fun or for whatever, but we see this again, 22 kids per week. That's awful. And we really have to not only educate our kids better, but we have to know how to stop that. So one of the reasons, a big reason why those numbers came down, and thank you to all of our DEA agents and everyone for all the work that they're doing, stopping the traffic of fentanyl. And clearly there was a lot done in the past couple years. But also a drug called Narcan came, instead of just being something that needed a prescription, it became over the counter. So anyone can purchase it. And I want to tell you just quickly how to use it. This is Narcan. And there's a couple things. When you're using it, number one, first of all, when did you use it? If you find someone unconscious in any situation where you didn't see them become unconscious, and there's a chance that they could be from a pill. So, with our kids, if they're in their own room by themselves, if they're at a party, whatever, so not if you see someone walking down the street and a tree hits their head, they're unconscious from the tree hitting their head. But if you find someone unconscious or in a party situation, don't be worrying about, is this fentanyl overdose or not, by trying to see if they've got tiny pupils, because if they have other things on board like alcohol and different drugs, the pupils aren't going to be reliable anyway. If someone is unconscious, if you cannot wake them up, try this. You will do no harm and you might save their life. But this is what you need to know. Number one, when you take it out of the foil wrap, it looks like this. And instinctively, you're going to want to try and take the cap off because it looks like Flonase or Nasacort or any of our nasal nose sprays that we use. There is no cap on this. So as the kids say, no cap, like for real, I tell them to remember it like that. Narcan, no cap. So Narcan, for real. There's no cap to remove, and there's only one dose in here. So do not put your thumb on the bottom and spray it into the air to see if there's enough in there. If you do that, you just lost the one dose. So all you do is, the person's laying down, you put it up inside their nose, put your thumb on the plunger and spray. At the same time, you're calling 911 and you're staying with that person until emergency help arrives. I hope that is helpful. Also, where can you purchase it? At any store, it is usually behind the counter. They don't keep it out. It costs $40 for 2 of them, for a packet of 2. And so stores found that people were stealing them and shoplifting. So they're behind the counter. You have to ask, but you do not need a prescription. All right. And seizures. I know this is a lot to process, but these are important things. And another thing we see a lot of with kids who are drinking too much or combining substances, they call that cross-faded, is we see seizures. And even aside from drug use, 1 in 26 Americans will have a seizure at some point in their lifetime. Okay, so some of those are infants having seizures from fevers. Some of those are older people having seizures from strokes. But a lot of people will just have a seizure during their life, whether it's because they've developed epilepsy, a condition where they have more seizures, or whether it's a drug reaction. So you in your lifetime are very likely to see someone have a seizure. And I want you to know what to do. Number one, when you see it, it feels like it lasts forever. And it's a scary thing to witness if you've never seen it. So there's just 3 things to do. The only thing you need to do for that person is to make sure that they don't get hurt further than after they initially collapse. So if they're in a chair and they start seizing, you can lower them to the ground so that they don't end up flopping to the ground and hitting their head. If you have a jacket on, take it off, fold it up, stick it underneath their head so that they're not hurting their head. But do not do anything else for them. You're just clearing the area away, remove anything that they might hit themselves on. Do not put anything in their mouth. A lot of parents our age were taught when we were young, oh, you should put something in their mouth to stop them from biting their tongue. Turns out that's not a good idea. And it just, they get hurt worse. You get hurt doing it. It's not good. So all you do is clear the space, help them to the ground. And the very you see it, grab your phone. If you've got a smartphone or smartwatch, do your Hey Siri and say, start stopwatch. Because once that's going, you actually know how long it really took, because the first thing that the EMS is going to ask when they arrive, because the next thing you do is call 911, they're going to say, how long did it last? And you're going to be like, oh, I don't know. And people never get the time right because it feels like it was forever. Most of the time, it's going to be less than a minute. The other thing, as a side note, it's when young adults have a seizure for the first time, especially, it is very embarrassing to them when they wake up. They don't know what's happened. They're clearly disoriented, and often they have lost control of their bowel or bladder. If you have a jacket, it's kind to just sort of drape it over their waist if they have obviously, had a urinary accident on themselves. So just a nice little Good Samaritan thing to do in addition to the other. All right. And almost to the end here. This is our last slide before we talk about what parents and communities can do. This is first aid kit. And I don't know if you can see behind me here. I have been making college first aid kits, young adult first aid kits for a very long time. And it is great to make one now and be using it for your family so that, again, you can pass those healthcare reins to your kid. And it can be just a box. It can be one of these, like this is sort of a toolbox kind of thing. But the key is this. Have it fully stocked. And when your kid goes off into the big world, make sure that you have all these things in there. Number one, a thermometer. Please give them a thermometer. It will help them get seen faster if they're calling their health center and saying, I had 102.7 fever, rather than them, the triage is going to ask, did you have a fever? And they're going to be like, I don't know, I felt hot. I think so. Some of this is just the more information you can give for the triage nurses and other staff, the better. So have a thermometer. The one good thing about COVID is that they made pulse oximeters super cheap. Those are those little things that you clip on your finger, tells you an accurate pulse and your oxygen saturation. That's not a must, but it's a nice plus to have. And they're down to about like $12 now. So I think it's money well spent, and it's more information. Make sure that you have the things that you need in the middle of the night. Cough syrup being a big one, Tums and acids, because you need immediate relief. The things that people don't think about putting in there, the biggest thing is a rehydration solution. So like Pedialyte, Cure, I like I like the taste of this one, or liquid IV. These are all better than just sports drinks. And when they're in a packet like this, it's just easy to store, and they can just add it to water. And that's what you want to rehydrate after any reason that you're dehydrated. It doesn't have to be being hungover from alcohol. It might be that you had food poisoning or got diarrhea and you just need to rehydrate. That's what you want in there. Make sure you have good Band-Aids. I say 2 ACE wraps because nobody remembers to put those in. So those always seem to walk off with friends, and then you don't have it when you need it. And a little note that may surprise you. While I did say antibiotic cream on there, the truth is for most cuts and scrapes, really what is recommended now is not an antibiotic cream, but to thoroughly clean the wound and then just apply a thin layer of petroleum jelly. So like, trade name Vaseline. So really that's better to have in there. And it's better to have it in a tube, like you squeeze out like toothpaste rather than the tub. And if you're going to use the tub, you need, Q-tips or something in there to take it out sanitarily. There's more details. When one of the things when I wrote my book, my whole book started because I made these first aid kits and made little cards that became a laminated booklet with all my suggestions of when to use what. And I made sure that my publisher agreed to have my full list of first aid kit ingredients and my cheat notes of when to use what. So that's a bonus if you get the book. All right. Now, what can parents do, right? Whole thing of Operation Parents is to put it out there for you. So my suggestions that you've heard me say is start early and often, transferring little pieces of the healthcare puzzle to your kid. Help them take control when they can. When you're at the doctor, let them say why they're there. This is really hard for healthcare professional parents because we want to just boom, 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 say it how we know that the doctor wants to hear it. And we are the absolute worst at that. So fellow medical people, extra effort on your part, and to let our kids learn how to tell their own stories at the doctor. Teach them, though, to lead with the most important thing. Don't save it for last because you're embarrassed. So start early, help them learn how to fill out those forms. The forms are so confusing, and you want them learning to do that with you sitting next to them before it's 3 a.m. and they've, heaven forbid, tripped and fallen or fallen off their bike on a college campus and they're filling it out on their own. So teach them ahead of time. Emphasize good sleep habits, nutrition, exercise. Think of exercise as helping your brain as much or more than your body, and be a great role model. The other thing is, please, please, parents, don't glorify your party scenes of your college life. Our family loves football and basketball, and we love going back to our alma maters and taking the family. But the thing is, and yes, people around us are drinking, but don't make it about the drinking. Make it about the fun and the friends and the fellowship, and role model best you can. They're watching you way more than they're listening to you. Next slide. What can schools do? Well, they can work on some of this stuff there too. I think it's great that there's more and more health classes and more kind of adulting classes where they're teaching these things. And I would like to see them learn, actually act out going to the doctor and what are the best practices there, and learning what's on an insurance card and how to fill out forms, or bring me in and let's do a workshop on that. Talk about peer pressure situations, really work through, do you have an escape word that you and your friends know, or a phrase like maybe it's red sweater. Did you see that guy in the red sweater? And if someone says that, everybody agrees it's time to go. But work on ways to say no and ways to really help address peer pressure in a way that's actually usable. What can communities do? All the things. I love seeing all the different fun runs and anything that is a physical or mental health event. I have to say, I am super impressed with Operation Parents TNT, Trends in Training. And I'm going to let Michelle jump in and tell you about that.
Thanks, Dr. Grimes. You taught us so much in a short amount of time. I took a lot of notes while you were talking, even though we've worked on the presentation for a while. Still keep hearing great things to share with my daughters and their friends. But a little bit about TNT. So our team is available to talk to you about how schools, drug-free coalitions, and churches are using the TNT step-by-step toolkit across the country. This is for middle schoolers, and it's an event. It's put on to teach evidence-based drug facts and gives middle schoolers practice with their drug refusal skills, which we all know is really important. I did want to share with you, we did this event in our community last fall, and we had over 400 parents and students come on a gorgeous Saturday and work through the event and just have so much fun. It didn't even seem like they were learning, they were just having a ball. And so we'd love to share with you how we did that and help you make it happen in your community.
Highly recommend. I was so impressed with the video. I wanted to be there. All right. And I do have some books.
Come next year. And when we do it again, we'll invite you to come and join us.
Wait, all right. I got to grab an extra book here. Okay. And there are so many great parenting books. You can see some of them behind me here. Some of my absolute favorites. Anything that Michelle Icard writes, she just connects with teens and preteens and younger in a way that very few people can. I love her books. So 14 Blocks at Age 14, 8 Setbacks That Can Make a Child a Success, and The Parent Compass, written by two women that I just feel like it needs to be required reading before your kid even starts kindergarten. They go through the whole thing and talk about overlapping stuff that Michelle talks about, you know, how and when we should be helping and getting away from that helicopter and even snowplow parenting and weaning down through that age appropriate. So highly recommend those books. And I would be totally remiss to not recommend this book also. This is The Ultimate Kid's Guide to Being Super Healthy. And mom brag, here it comes again. Gotta zoom in, and right there it says the illustrator is Nicole Grimes. Yes, that's my daughter again. So it's another book she's illustrated. But honestly, all kidding aside, more importantly, Dr. Nina Shapiro is a pediatric ear, nose, and throat doctor. She was at UCLA for years. She is in private practice. This book is awesome. It is a great end of year gift for teachers, I think. And she's got little exercises for them to do as a class, little experiments. And she explains everything so well about why shots work, how they work, even hand washing, basic stuff. But it is just a fabulous book. Yes, I'm biased about the illustrations, but I'm telling you, great book that I highly recommend.
They are beautiful illustrations. Brag away.
They are super cute. Kids really like them, actually. I'm very proud of her. All right. And then some resources to recommend. Another book that always lives on my shelf here. I never have to worry about where these books are because I'm always recommending them. So the 525 Foundation, this is a really, really powerful story of Nick and Jack Savage, two young men who died on the same night. This mom, Becky Savage, lost 2 of her 4 kids in one night, and it was to drug overdose. And these were great kids doing, out in the world doing great things, one heading off to college, one already in college. And it's one of those things, it just takes a pill. So really important. I think the Gordy Center is another foundation that was started by the loss of someone, and his death was through hazing and substance misuse. And I think the Gordy Center is a great resource. I always recommend my academy, the American Academy of Family Physicians, and also the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
We really appreciate what Becky is doing out of Indiana. Operation Parent has an office in Indiana, and she's doing really great work out of that tragedy.
Yes, absolutely. They're such respect.
For sure. Yeah. So. Go ahead. Sorry.
So a lot of people will say, well, it's great that I heard this, but how's my, I want my kid to hear what you're saying.
Exactly.
That's why I joined TikTok, and I'm there as long as TikTok hangs out. I'm at tiktok.collegedoc. So, I mean, if they search in there, the TikTok college doc, I'm the only one that's going to come up. So, and I talk about these things. I talk about blackout drinking and about these risks. And some things I talk about, they get censored and they don't get shown. But, when I try and talk about the risks of suicide, but then they got put back up. And so anyway, I'm just trying to increase awareness, and I'm trying to talk directly to the kids there. I also have Instagram. On Instagram, it's just my name, Jill Grimes, MD. I would love you to follow me. And I feel like my audience there is more parents, but also more and more young adults are following me there as well. So
great place for young adults to be creative and regular content, exactly the things that they need to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
We invite you to also, and when I mean like the things they need to hear, I have tabs all through Dr. Grimes' book. Like there's so many. And I was just like, oh gosh, I needed to say something about that earlier in the year. But it goes from anywhere from pink eye to sore throats to ear infections to tech neck. Anything that could possibly come up for your college student is in this handbook. And she's updated it 3 times, right? You're on your 3rd revision.
Yep.
240 award-winning trips and hacks are in this book. And then for those of us that are preventionalists, all the things that she elaborated on beautifully in this webinar are also in the book. Alcohol, fentanyl, cannabis, edibles, they're all covered here in this book. So I cannot say enough good things about it. And then the way you present that on your social channels for young adults to get it in small snippets here and there, it's beautifully done.
Thank you.
So we want you to join Dr. Grimes on her socials, and if you could also join us on ours at Operation Parent, are our handles on all of our channels, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as YouTube, which Amanda's doing a beautiful job for us, keeping us present on social channels and giving your communities educational information that you can share out in your communities too.
And I'll give a shout out right back to Operation Parent for their parent handbooks. I love that they have them in Spanish as well. And they're talking about all the things, and we have a lot of overlapping topics. You can't hear this stuff too often. And I think it's always so helpful to have a handbook where you've got just like all the things together. So totally recommend theirs as well.
We've tried to put a really great guide together, Dr. Grimes. Thank you for that compliment, hitting on the 20 plus toughest issues that parents are going to encounter with their teens, so that you could find it all in one place, one-stop shop. And we know that it's valuable. We know that it has saved lives for parents getting the information and seeing when teens are struggling. It's very affordable. The $14.99 price for middle and high, $9.99 for the elementary version. And then, as Dr. Grimes mentioned, it comes in several editions. So you can get the elementary version, middle and high, as I mentioned, but also Spanish as well as Christian. So depending on what you might need, it should be there for you, we hope.
And that's me. So that's my website. You can reach out to me there. If you're looking for a speaker, I've got a speakers page on there where you can let me know what your needs are and we can work together. I'm not super active on LinkedIn, but I do have a LinkedIn. So these are all the different ways that you can reach me. And the book, yes, this is the 3rd edition, came out last year, and you can find it anywhere books are sold. I love supporting indie bookstores first. It is also Amazon, Target, Walmart, online. And yay, enter to win. I'm excited to see who wins it, and make sure that when Amanda reaches out to you that you tell me who you want me to make the book out to. If they are headed off to college, please tell me what college and, maybe what their major is, and I will personalize it when I sign the book.
That's right. Don't be shy about entering to win. We've got 3 copies that we're excited to share with the lucky winners.
Yay.
So this will allow you to do a quick registration. If you'd like to join us on our next webinars, we'd love to have you. And then now we are going to cover a few questions from the audience. So one of the first questions that came in is, what else can you recommend in regard to healthy offerings on college campuses?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Starting with, they all have like really state-of-the-art facilities now in their gyms. I mean, it's not just a gym. They have rock climbing walls. They have all kinds of different dance. Ballroom dancing is actually one of the most popular clubs across the country. It's so interesting, and it's great because it's forced interaction, right? So guys and girls, it's a great place to meet other people, even if you're shy. So all of that. And again, look at the different clubs and look at the events that they have posted, because everything from ultimate frisbee, co-ed, all the intramural sports. Oh, that's the number one regret of many seniors, by the way, that they didn't join co-ed intramural sports. A lot of, whether you're a student athlete or whether you're not an athlete at all, that is a really fun way to meet people. And it goes way beyond pickleball. They have all kinds of fun and even silly clubs at different schools. And look into that. You will not regret it.
I love that suggestion. There's so many offerings. My background is in higher ed. And so, if there's a club that you're interested in starting, most college campuses will welcome that. So if you have like a niche interest and you're not finding the offering right there, often the student activities office will work with you to start those clubs. And then, like you were mentioning too, from the mental health perspective, the exercise thing is really helpful, the movement in terms of managing mental health. So that suggestion to get involved in intramurals, that's how I met most of my friends in college, to be honest, is through participating in intramurals. And for those many kids that played competitive sports in high school and they're not doing that in college, that's a really nice way to stay involved in an athletic activity, and not if you're not continuing with your sport. The other thing is the aerobics classes. So if you're not one that you like to exercise solo on your own, you can find a lot of offerings and times available for group fitness. So that would be one of my other suggestions. Thank you for all of those. And then another parent said, I feel like I sent 2 adult children off to college who are now doing things that we didn't raise them to do. What are your suggestions there?
My main suggestion is to know that you are not alone. That conversation is going on in so many households right now. And it is not a reflection of your parenting if your kids are choosing different pathways. I will tell you that there are certain things, it depends on your friend group. Some friend groups in college campuses, everybody is drinking for real, and no cap. And everybody may be doing edibles. It is very, very common in some groups. That's part of why I really encourage people to join those 3 different organizations, because different friend groups have very different social norms. And if everyone you see that's around you is doing something, it's really hard not to do that, especially when you don't see any negative outcomes from it. As a side note, like today's cannabis products, weed, that we used to call pot, 1 in 6 teens will get addictive. But that means 5 out of 6 teens won't get addicted. And so you might have a friend group where you've got 8 or 10 friends and none of them seem to have a problem with it, but you try it and you get addicted. So I would try and have those conversations without accusing yourself of bad parenting or accusing them of being a bad person. These are just different choices. Sorry, that's my visual timer. Remember to get that if you've got someone who's time blind.
Yeah, that's good. Those are really great suggestions. And you know how the cannabis use as well as alcohol, if you have a genetic disposition in your family to addiction,
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So what we know now, largely from some studies in Denmark. So this is not political. Okay, this is not a partisan thing. In Denmark, they're able to look at all of their medical records. And the bottom line, I'm just going to cut to the chase in the interest of time. What we know is that young men who have cannabis use disorder, which means young men who are smoking, like a lot of them all day, every day, and know that they should give it up and can't. That's the definition of cannabis use disorder. Of those kids, they have the males, young males have a 4 times greater risk. It was 3.8, lest I exaggerate. Nearly 4 times greater risk of developing schizophrenia. And the girls of the same age with cannabis use disorder have a 2 times greater risk. And that may not seem like much, but if you have someone in your family history who has schizophrenia, you know what a challenging diagnosis that is to live with. And if you don't, someone who has schizophrenia has bouts of psychosis, which means they can't tell what's real and what's not real. So they might see things that might be scary, it is a very difficult diagnosis and challenging disease. And so if it may be that these young people were going to get schizophrenia anyway, but they might not have gotten it till age 30. And instead, from this early cannabis use where they get heavy and they got addicted and they couldn't quit, now they've flipped that switch in their brain and they've got that diagnosis 15 years before they needed to. So it is a modifiable risk factor for schizophrenia. What I basically tell young people is if you have any family history of schizophrenia or any type of psychosis, like bipolar disorder with psychosis, that just consider those products poison. Do not put those in your body.
It's really one of the things we've heard from a treatment center here in our area. When we ask what's the number one thing you want us to talk to parents about and tell them, it's what you're talking about there. And they were saying that even with, so not related to the genetic part that you covered, but just related to use, those use of one time can put a student into, or your teen into a psychosis episode that could last a very long time, even up to a month.
Oh yeah. And yes. And those are part of the phone calls I get that, their kid tried weed, didn't think it was going to be a big deal, but for them it was. And they became fully manic. They were psychotic. They thought the FBI was chasing them with guns. It's terrifying for them. Friends take them to the emergency room. I mean, it is just, it's a different, these products are not what people our age think of when they think of marijuana.
Exactly. That's why I'm so glad we're talking about them today. And the family history tie or the genetic disposition, like you're describing it to us, it could be causing a very early onset of something that may have happened later in their life, like 15 to 20 years later, but it's causing something to trigger it much earlier. That's so frightening. The same family genetic history tie with alcohol.
Sure.
Addiction in the family. So having those conversations about if you've got family addiction genes, what that means for your particular teen, to have honest conversations about that. One colleague in the field that you might really like to, Dr. Grimes, and our audience would, is Dr. Danielle Dick, has done a past webinar for us as well. And it's so fascinating. She studies genes, literally saliva tests and genes and addiction in her lab at Rutgers University. There's some really neat work going on in that area of the country as well.
So important.
Are you ready for the next question?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so can you tell us the name of some of the sleep story apps that you like?
Yes, I can. Actually, I listened to one last night that was that my younger daughter listens to. It's a podcast actually called Sleep With Me. And it was so interesting because as soon as I heard what the story was going to be about, it was about the Loch Ness Monster, who I kind of have a fascination with. I was like, I am not going to sleep during this. We're talking about Nessie, right? You know, I fell asleep. So they work. What can I tell you? Anyway, so podcast called Sleep With Me. Also, Headspace, Calm, Slumber. Those are all apps. And if you go in the App Store and you put in sleep stories, you have a long list. But Headspace I've liked for years and recommended for years for their guided meditations and different things. I think they're very reputable. And Calm as well. Slumber I'm not as familiar with, but that's another top one.
I love how you are teaching us to be better at our sleep and protect our sleep areas. We know our teens are way low on sleep. And so
and our parents.
And our parents, us, everyone. So we can all take lessons from that. Okay, so here's the next question. Our audience was recommending checking in communities for free Narcan.
Oh, yes, I should have said that. Absolutely. So there are lots of sites where you can get Narcan for free. Definitely universities will usually often provide it for free for their students, not like they want the whole community coming in because they got a fixed supply, but different organizations will give it away. So if, again, Google can be your friend here, just put in your community and say, where can I get it? Because a lot of places are providing free 1 or 2 doses of it.
Excellent. Very good. And for those drug-free coalition members that are on the call, or if you're a parent, you can look for a drug-free coalition in your community, and they can guide you in the right direction about who might have a grant that has allowed for free Narcan in your area. Okay, so everyone loves your first aid kit. Yes.
Yes, make sure that that's part of your first aid kit. That's what I was holding up my little Narcan for.
Yeah, excellent. And I think you said this, but about the Narcan, you told everyone it's never going to hurt anyone if they don't need it.
Correct.
But also, would you say too, like sometimes it takes more than just the one dose? That's why you were saying like be very protective of your dose. And if the first dose doesn't work, would you recommend that folks try a second?
Yes. And by then you will have called 911 and they will tell you to give a second dose. A lot of times what happens is it works. And so the person wakes up. So what you need to know is Narcan stops you from breathing. That's how it kills you. Right. So it just turns off your drive to breathe. So by squirting this in their nose, in your brain, you're turning that center back on that says, oops, yep, start breathing again, start breathing. So they'll cough, sputter, start breathing again. But if they have too much drug in their system, it's the Narcan can't combat all of that. And so they might go back unconscious. And when they go back unconscious, go back to not breathing. So that's why you may very well need a second dose. And again, you want to have 911, you want to have emergency responders on the way so that you may only have one dose with you, but it's great if you have 2. And, but you're just trying to get them to emergency help as soon as possible.
Excellent suggestions. Super important these days that everybody is up to speed and thinking ahead about that.
And also, I just want to throw out there too, a lot of parents will say, well, if I put this in their first aid kit, isn't that encouraging them to try drugs? And then they know that they can just reverse it. Well, one, it doesn't always work. I mean, it works great, but this is by no means a reassurance that it's going to cure everything. And 2, our kids aren't stupid. They're not going to think that, when you have conversations with them, I don't believe very many kids are going to look at it that way. And 3, you're not putting it there for them. You're putting it there for their roommate, their friend, because if it's them, they're going to be unconscious. And, somebody has to know it's there to you. So
Great.
please include.
They're either going to hear it from you or someone else. I mean, when we recently moved a daughter in to her college residence hall, there was a Narcan poster literally right outside of her door where we moved her in. So they're going to hear it somewhere, and it's better if they hear it from you and they know your values and your stance. And there's, like you said, it could be used to help anyone on their floor or anyone they live near. Yep.
And think of the tragedy of walking in and maybe your roommate's that one who has been studying for 3 days and they're pre-med and they're freaking out and they just have to get some sleep. And your sweet mate said, here, take this Xanax that I got. Just get a good night's sleep. And then tomorrow you'll wake up and, everything will be great. And they took what they thought was a prescription pill, and they're getting sleep. But instead you walk in and you see that they're gasping for breath or they're not breathing at all. You can save their life.
Perfect. Everyone on the call loves your first aid kit. So they were asking to go back to that slide and get a picture, but we were going to remind them that the handout shows that information as well. So make sure you download the handout as well as the beautiful information that's in the back of Dr. Graham's book has all of that first aid information in it too.
It's also in here along with the cheat notes of when to use what and a shopping list.
Perfect. So I think this is a pretty good place to end the call, unless you can think of anything we didn't get to that you were hoping to mention.
I think that's it. I could talk for an hour on every one of these subjects.
Yeah, we look forward to having you back again so we can do a follow-up webinar whenever your time might allow. We're so grateful for all the time that you put into this webinar and the ground that you covered for families, just giving them so much information. The transition to college or to whatever is next for young folks following high school trade-wise, it's a big transition period. So we hope that this information is just coming at a perfect time of year to start to think about those big transitions and be better prepared for it. But you guys, parents, I hope you know, we at Operation Parent think that you've got this. We know that you've got this, and Operation Parent has got you. And we appreciate Dr. Graham's help in supporting families today. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody on our next webinars.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you soon.